Thank you. I appreciate that. So with that, we'll officially begin. Welcome to our last minute seminar. I just talked to Boaz yesterday, and we said, hey, there's lots of people that would like to know what's going on here. And because we turn on the news and we see a little bit, or we even more than that, watch alert systems or whatever it is, and we see our Jewish and Israeli friends talking about all of the rockets that are coming, and we hear even about coming from Lebanon and coming from Gaza, and many of us on this trip, of course, have been here, and we are grateful for that. Been there, been to Israel, but we just want to come in and get Boaz, who lives there in Galilee. Boaz, what time of day is it there? Middle of the night?
Yeah, it's 10 past 10 at night.
Yeah, so not we're not keeping you up too late. So we'll go
No.
about hour and 15 minutes or so
Yeah.
with some questions. But if I can just start us out, let's start personally. And you, Boaz, live in Galilee in the northern Israel, not too far from the Lebanon border. Tell us, start out, if it's okay, just start out telling us.
Yeah, I'll start about that, and then about the war, and then I'll open it to Q&A. So yeah, I live in Galilee. I am about 7 miles from the border with Lebanon. What is it like to live here? It's first of all, it's great. I mean, and for those of you that have been to Israel, you know what Galilee is like. Statistically, and that is sad, every few years there's a serious unrest in Galilee, and then that usually leads to exchange of missiles between Israel and Hezbollah, who is the terror organization that controls Lebanon. It's been very quiet since 2006. That is known as the Second Lebanon War. And what Israel did then was similar to what happened in Gaza just recently. And we will talk about that only on a bigger scale and for many more days. So after that war, Hezbollah figured it's better to just be quiet and do nothing. However, like 3 days ago, there were a few rockets that were sent from Lebanon into Western Galilee. That's not near me, but that's also not too far, about 25 miles from where we live. Bless God, they all fell in the open space and caused no damage. But we, of course, had to monitor that and make sure that this was just a random thing to show sympathy to the Palestinians and not something that is developing and may need more attention. So right now it's all quiet. As for what started a little less than 2 weeks ago in Gaza is something that's very complicated. I mean, the news that you eventually get on your TV give you the situation at any given moment, but they don't really tell you what are the reasons, what is behind, what are the things that really motivate people to do what they do. And I don't blame them because many of them simply don't know that. In order to know these things, you have to be from here. You need to understand the culture over here in order to understand things that usually don't make any sense to people who come from the Western culture. So let me try and explain before we, like I said, go to questions. Up until 2 weeks ago, things were relatively calm and quiet. And the Israeli army, even the intelligence, did not anticipate any hostility coming in the near future. Okay. But then again, you live in the Middle East. It's a neighborhood that it's full of surprises all the time. And Hamas, who is the terror organization that controls by force and violence the Gaza Strip, they jumped on an opportunity to get the world's attention. And what is the opportunity? That the Muslims were celebrating the Ramadan. The Jewish people were supposed to have what we call the Jerusalem Day that we celebrate in Jerusalem every year. And with no COVID-19, people from all over the world come here and join us together as we march through the city of Jerusalem, both the new and the old city. And they started launching missiles then. And what is the idea behind it? The message behind it is that, hey, Israel, listen, that you think that you're boss, well, you're not. We are. And we're going to interrupt you in Jerusalem during the Jerusalem day, and we will dictate the terms and what's going to happen there. And to be honest, very sadly, in a very disappointing way, they were able to grab together with them not only the Gaza people, but the Palestinians who live outside of Gaza in Judea and Samaria. Not only that, Lebanese militias in Lebanon, and above all, and the worst of all, the Arabs who are citizens of Israel living in Israel. So they opened a few frontiers against Israel, basically saying, from now on, we are a factor. You can say that we're a terror organization all day long, but we are a factor, and nothing will happen in this part of the world without us being involved in it. This is a very simple way to try and teach you something that's really complicated, but I think that a lot of the information will surface now through your questions. So let's begin, please.
And let's begin with a question from Pastor Robert Webb. How much did Abbas's postponement of the election scheduled for May 22nd fuel hostilities?
You're talking about the postponing of the elections in the Palestinian Authority?
Correct.
Okay, that is a perfect example. I couldn't ask for a better question to teach you through it. Well, the PLO was supposed to have their elections, about 2 weeks ago or so. I remind you, PLO are the Palestinians that control the West Bank. Hamas are the Palestinians who control Gaza. Do they like each other? Boy, they hate each other. Okay, don't get it wrong. But as long as they both hate us, at least they have something in common. So what happened is that, what's his name now? Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of the Palestinians in the West Bank, he was supposed to go to elections, but the polls told him that he is going to lose big time. And since this is not really a democracy, even when they allow elections, it's not a full democracy, because as he did, he simply canceled it because he realized he is losing. And what happens next is Hamas, that knew that they just lost their victory, decided we're going to do something. What we're going to do? We're going to attack Israel. That's always the easy thing to do, and one that you can explain to your people. It would have been harder to them, to Hamas, to explain to the Palestinians in Gaza and other Arab countries why they're attacking their own brothers in the West Bank. So let's attack Israel and say Israel made it happen. It's an Israeli conspiracy. That's the answer.
So let me clarify on that a little bit. Are you saying that Hamas capitalized on Abbas's weakness, and if he can't win the election, then let's jump on this right now and make progress where we can?
Absolutely. If we can't win the elections, we will win it anyway. So it's not going to be an official thing, but now all the Palestinians and all the Israeli Arabs and everyone in the neighborhood around will know that Hamas is boss. Whether we were elected or didn't get elected, doesn't matter.
Do you think, a related question, do you think Abbas knew that when he postponed the elections that Hamas would respond in that way?
Yes, he did, because nothing goes unpunished over here. You can't tell someone who is aspiring to be the ruler, you're not going to be the one not because you lost, just because I'm afraid to lose, and that's why I will not even let it happen. Obviously, steams will come out. And he also figured they're not going to aim it against him. They'll do what they always do against Israel.
Does it also help Abbas because
Oh, no,
situation?
no. Oh, no. It doesn't help Abbas at all. It even makes it worse because now what happens, the new reality is that Hamas is the one that confronts Israel. Hamas is the one that fights on behalf of all the Arabs, while Abbas is sitting there doing nothing. He's too afraid to go to elections. He's too afraid to go fight against Israel. Forget about him. We'll show you how we protect our people.
Which just kind of creates a vacuum of power on both sides of Israel, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And is there any possibility that the West Bank would get involved in this? For now, it's all coming from Hamas and Hezbollah from Gaza and Lebanon. Will it ever come from the West Bank?
I will divide my answer into two. Yes, it can happen. And yes, it is not very likely to happen in the near future. And I will explain. I say yes, it can happen because I will say and repeat the words I said when I began, that the Middle East is a different neighborhood. When people from the West, Americans, Europeans, even us Israelis, we live here, but we're Western in our way of thinking. Um, when we try to analyze and give answers to what they do, we oftentimes find ourselves making a big mistake. Why is that? Let me give you an example. We say if terrorists from Hamas will kill Israelis, what we're going to do is we'll blow up their homes. Even though they'll probably die while doing that, they'll explode themselves. They still know that their parents and their siblings will stay without a house because Israel is going to blow it up. It doesn't matter. They don't care. You see, unlike you and me, they don't care. If I knew that I'm going to do something fanatic because it suits my belief, but then if I die, my parents and my siblings will have no roof above their heads, I wouldn't do it. To them, that's no problem. When they send their kids to go and kill themselves, and you hear the mother of that 17-year-old boy say, I'm so proud of my son who is now in heaven, you and I say, what did she say? What is exactly that she's celebrating? What is the thing that made her raise her child for 17 years just so he'll go blow up himself somewhere and kill a bunch of Jews? Is that what I brought him to the world for? See, to us, that's foreign. That's not how we think. This war, this recent conflict ended with about, we don't have the precise numbers, about 300 Hamas terrorists that were killed, 12 Israelis that were killed. They celebrated as their victory. Why? Because number of people who got killed means nothing to them. And to us, if it's 12, even if it's one, we will still say in that aspect we lost, because one Jewish soul that lost its life is worth more than all the people who live in Gaza. So the clashes of um, cultures is unbridgeable if you don't really understand that. Now, I don't remember if I answered the question or not. What was the question?
It was a good answer, though. So I want to pick up on something that's mildly related here. How important is, I'm not sure how to word the question, but how important is weakness in the Middle East versus weakness versus strength? That seems to be something culturally as well that Americans perhaps are somewhat kind and accommodating towards weakness. Is that the case in the Middle East? It seems like any political weakness or cultural weakness that your enemies are going to attack on that. So has weakness fueled this?
Um, the best way for me to answer this, and I'm not offending anyone, I'm just saying to really understand what weakness is to walk into the savannah of Africa next to hungry lions and hyenas and whatnot, and expect not to be attacked. They'll eat you in no time. Same thing over here. On the other hand, when the elephants walk through the savannah, everyone makes way because they respect the elephants. They're big and they're strong. So same thing over here. If you try to display kindness, gestures, unfortunately, it is not being received and answered in the same manner. The idea is if you are being nice, that means you're weak. If you're weak, that means that you want to attack me, but you just can't. So why won't I go ahead and attack you? So that is why you can clearly see it even with your presidents. When George Bush was in power, then the Middle East was a lot more relaxed. And it was when it wasn't, he went after Saddam and got him. Okay. And after that, things got relaxed. When Obama was in power for 8 years, that is a catastrophe that we're still paying for even today, years after he's left, because North Korea and China and Iran and all the terror organizations around the world knew we can do anything we want. Obama is not going to do anything against us. Obama was the one who flew to Egypt 24 hours after he was elected. He kept promising all the Arabs and the Muslims in the world how nice and kind America is going to be towards them. And terrorism under him is unheard of. And then Donald Trump comes to office and everything quiets down again. North Korea is not playing games. Even the Chinese are now beginning to shake a little bit because they know that there's someone serious in office. Now, Hezbollah, Hamas, they're all a lot more relaxed because they know that there is someone who is strong. By the way, our most militant prime minister ever was Ariel Sharon, whom I simply admire, but that's for another lecture. And when he was first elected, I remember the headlines in newspapers all over the world is that we are going to World War III, because they knew how aggressive he was and how tough he was and all the battles that he fought in. But guess what? The day he came to office, all the Arab countries around us were very quiet because they respected him. They said, even though they didn't say it online, but they did say, this is a guy that talks business and we don't want to push him. So that's the language of the Middle East.
Well, President Biden did come on the other day and ask both parties to calm down a little bit. That probably will solve it, right?
Biden?
Yes.
Yeah. It's no, it's not gonna solve anything. And the problem is that it also weakens Israel. When you tell Israel you need to stop, and it's not a suggestion, as he said, then you're making us look weak to Hamas, to the whole Middle East who is watching. Now, you need to understand the war, the campaign that we just finished in Gaza is not just between us and them. All the eyes of our enemies in the Middle East were watching. And why? To see what is Israel doing in response, how weak or strong Israel is. If we try to do something, how will we be answered? So at least in this aspect, I'm glad that Israel made a lot of damage before Biden stepped in to kind and make people in the area think twice if they aspire to also attack Israel.
So also from Pastor Webb, the president's recently authorized $100 million to be reinstated to go to the Palestinian Authority. Did that play into it? Did it embolden Hamas? The United States materially getting in on the side of the enemies of Israel? What's that do to Israel?
Yes, that's same thing. That's a bad message. On the one hand, America recognizes Hamas as a terror organization. On the other hand, money is legitimately or legally coming into here. So it again, it doesn't make sense. But not only that, let me share something that is one step ahead in not making sense. You are not even a direct enemy of Hamas because you're there and they're here. They hate you, but they don't have a border with you. Us, they have border with, so it's different. And we not only allow them, to get all kind of things, we supply them with electricity, we supply them with cement, we supply them with iron, we supply them with all these things that eventually they used to build bombs that they throw back against us. But we cannot stop it, because the day we stop it, they'll say, and when I say they, I'm talking about the whole world, Israel is killing innocent people. There's a genocide in Gaza. There's no electricity in the hospitals. People are dying in the streets. That's exactly what's going to happen. And Israel does not want to be in a picture that shows this agenda. And in any event, about 85% of the budget that gets into the Gaza for the people goes to Hamas, so they can build the tunnels again and build more rockets and keep the Gaza people poor, hungry, suffering.
So tell us the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah in terms of their worldviews and where they're from, and how has Hezbollah been involved in this latest skirmish versus Hamas?
Hamas and Hezbollah have things that are in common and have things that take them to two different corners of the world. So let's start with the easy thing in common. They both are entities that brutally control the countries in which they operate. Hamas does that in Gaza, in the south. Hezbollah does that in Lebanon, in the world. Don't kid yourself that there's a Lebanese army. There is one, but impotent, doesn't have any power at all. So it's Hamas really that dictates, not Hamas, Hezbollah, everything that's happening in Lebanon. So they both do that. They both have borders with Israel, and they both get into military adventures with Israel when it serves their purposes. What is the difference? The difference is actually big. Both of them are Arabs, both of them are Muslims, but Hezbollah in Lebanon is Shiite, and Hamas in the Gaza are Sunnis. For those of you who may not necessarily know what is the difference between Sunni and Shiite, it's probably like a Yankee and someone from the Bible Belt. No, I'm kidding. But what it is both are Muslims, but Muslims who don't like each other, and that is an understatement. And in order again to understand that, you have to go to the very beginning of Islam, why the Shiites for the last 1300 years feel that um, the kingdom was stolen from them and given to the Sunnis. The hatred between them is something that one cannot even comprehend. And if they do anything together, that will be only for a target that somehow serves both purposes of both of them, in this case, Israel. So if one attacks Israel, the other one is happy and may even jump in. But when this is over, they'll get to their own wars and civil wars and hatred. Just that you understand, when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, there were also lots of PLO Palestinians, police officers over there. Not only they got rid of them, they did it by throwing them from the roofs of the buildings in Gaza down to the main streets. That's how they executed them in daylight, Muslims to Muslims.
Question from Gail that relates to the current ceasefire. The question is, are you personally happy with the ceasefire, or would you prefer that Israel had finished the job? Now, I'm going to add just a little bit to Gail's question. This ceasefire, is it a legitimate ceasefire? Is it really going to last? What's your overall feelings on it? And is it a good thing or bad thing?
It's a bad thing and it's not going to last. This is the fourth war with Hamas in the last 10 years. Do you even comprehend what that means? To statistically, every 2.5 years, have a war with the same enemy. And when every war ends, it is the same cliches. Now it's going to be peaceful. Now they're not going to dare do that again. And so this concept is not a correct one. And the way this operation should have ended, like the one before, and the one before, and the one before, is one of two: serious damage in Gaza before we evacuate. I mean, this was serious what we did now, but I'm not talking about this scale. I'm not talking about 300 terrorists, dying and 2,000 buildings being hurt. I'm talking about the Israeli army, not only Air Force, getting in there and cleaning the area, no matter what happens. I mean, no matter what the price is, that will save lives in the future, because then Gaza will be clean for many years. The option that I prefer, which is even one step ahead for what I told you now, and eventually, inevitably, I believe it will happen, is that Israel invading into Gaza and simply annihilating Hamas regime, meaning that when we end the war, there's not even Hamas person left, not even one, not the big high guys, at the top of the chain, and not the middle people, and not the regular soldiers. When we finish the operation, there is no Hamas. And at this point, we can say to the world, to America, to the UN, we are done. The cancer is cured. Please bring your personality here to take care of Gaza. We will help restoring Gaza. We will help with whatever it needs. Now, Gaza is terror free. Let's together try and make this a normal place to live in. Every war simply postpone that if we don't finish it off.
Which would basically be the approach that the United States took during World War II with Germany and Japan.
Yeah.
And is there the political will within Israel itself and the military ability within Israel itself to be able to do that?
Well, I will be a little bit offended now on behalf of the military, the Israeli military, because we can take on the entire Middle East in a couple of days. Gaza is more like an annoying fly that bites you. Can't really do anything, but also biting you is not fun. Okay, this is not one of the big players in the area, so that's on the thing. They need to stop, just to be stopped, so they can't do that anymore. And like I said, it's not only because of them, it's because of everyone else in the neighborhood is watching. And if we get into Gaza, like I said, and clean it completely, then I'm sure that Hezbollah in Lebanon will also keep quiet for 20 or 30 years, because they'll say if that's what they did there, they're going to do the same thing in Lebanon, and then we're gone. So we'll keep the tension with Israel, but we'll keep it on a certain level that we don't upset the Israelis too much.
And would that be able to happen without upsetting the world community? And does Israel care?
Okay, so the answer is no and yes. We cannot do it with a big world pressure on us. And yes, unfortunately, we do care about world opinion. Sadly, this is a great example of what's happening these days to show you the hatred towards Israel around the world. We're watching on television now the last 2 days all the attacks on Jewish people and Israelis in New York City. Who would have thought, who would have believed that Israelis will be attacked in New York just because they're Jews, and they're not being attacked by a small mob, by hundreds of people. And it's not only in New York. Look at what's happening in Europe. So the world does not love us to begin with. Obviously, you know that I'm not talking about you guys, the American Christian evangelicals, but I'm talking about a lot of people. And saying we don't care about these countries is not something that we can do because we are a small country. America can do that. You're a huge country, powerful, big economy, 300 plus million people. You're talking about a small country over here. You're talking about 7 million Jews living here on an area that's the size of Rhode Island. So to take a credit and say we don't care about what the world say, that would be utopia, but in reality, not gonna work.
Yeah, excellent. Those who have joined us perhaps late, we are glad that you are here. And if you would like to ask a question, you can use the chat box, and we would appreciate that. And again, appreciate it if you will mute your mics if you have those on.
And until then, I'll just give you some information about the success or the failure of this operation. I think that most people will agree in Israel that all in all, it was a success. One is many of the Islamic Jihad and Hamas terrorists that we killed were at the top of the hierarchy. So no matter what they will say about it, it is a big damage that will take them a long time to restore. That's one thing. Another thing is the underground city, literally an underground city that they built over there, is mostly destroyed now. We destroyed about 70 miles of underground tunnels where they were hiding and were hiding their weapons and whatnot. As a matter of fact, I don't know if they told you that on the news, but the genius thing that Israel did last week is to announce that we're invading with ground troops into the Gaza. And then immediately all the terrorists got into the tunnels to find shelter from the Israeli invasion. And at that point, the Israeli Air Force bombed, all the tunnels and buried them alive under the debris. That was brilliant. I think that it will take maybe weeks before they will know how many people are still buried there of their, terrorists. So we had lots of, good success during this conflict. But again, the fact that we didn't finish it completely, the fact that Hamas can come from all the destruction now and say, we won, is still something that pains, but it's what it is.
How much living there, if something was happening like this in our neighborhood, people would be scared. They would probably stop going about their daily lives. In Israel, and again, you're not far from the Lebanese border where you live, is there a fear that's embedded in Israeli life right now that what's it do to the psyche to live through all that?
Unlike you guys that have the privilege of saying, well, I don't like Taos, New Mexico, I'm going to move to California. Well, I'm not really loved in California, I'm going to go to Texas. And if that doesn't work, I'll go to Idaho or to Florida. We don't have this privilege. We are locked in a very tiny place. So let me give you this example. Let's say that there's a town, and in this town, it's a small town, and there's 4 kindergartens, and you send your kid to the first one, and he comes home and he says, Dad, someone is bullying me and whatever, and you right away move your kid to the second one. And in the second school, same thing happens. So without even trying to challenge that or to do, you take him to the third one. But by the fourth one, that's it. There's no more kindergartens. What do? You have your kid stay at home and do nothing just because someone bullied him, or you say, no, 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 this is not the way to handle that. To run away from reality doesn't solve the case. So when that happens in the first kindergarten, you take care of it and you do whatever you feel like doing. I mean, you can go tell the headmaster that this is not something that you will tolerate, and you'll bring the police if necessary, and I don't know what, but this has to stop. If that doesn't work, you do what I do, or what I did when my kid suffered from that, when he was in second grade, and like four guys, from third grade were giving him hard time every day. And we talked to the teachers and it didn't help. So I said to my kid, I'm going with you to school tomorrow. I want to see who these kids are. And we went there just before school started. And my kid said, Boaz, this is one of them. And I came to him and I talked to him nicely. And I said, do you have any problems with my kid? And he said, no. And I said, we're going to keep it this way, right? And he said, yes. And that was the last time we ever had problems. So you'll find a way to do that, but running and running and running will not bring this to an end. So with this idea of what I just told you, think of Israel. I live in Galilee, okay? And I live close to Lebanon, and hostility starts tomorrow. And I say, okay, you know what? I don't want to take this. So I'm going to go a bit south to the Sea of Galilee area. But what happens next year when the Syrians on the Golan will start firing towards the Sea of Galilee? Once again, I'll say, hey, this is not really safe for me. I'll go south. I'll continue to Tel Aviv. And then we're going to have something in Tel Aviv. And then I'm going to go where? To the Mediterranean? It just doesn't end. No one is going to kick us off our homes, period. And if we have to stand and fight back, that's what we'll do. And by the way, people always ask us if we're afraid. I guarantee you that this is a better question to ask all our neighbors. They're a lot more afraid than us than we're afraid from them. So that's what keeps us in a good shape.
Wow.
The rockets from Israel certainly have a better aim, don't they?
Yeah.
And certainly worthy to be feared. Let's see, from Pastor Robert, we heard a few reports about rocket attacks in Dimona. Since that is extraordinarily sensitive area, how serious is the threat?
No, it wasn't serious at all. I would not say that it's not a serious potential, but they said that they tried to send missiles towards Dimona. Nothing even got close. And I can tell you that Dimona, by the way, for those of you who may not know, that's where we store our nuclear missiles. There's a lot of protection around it, more than any other place in Israel. So, first of all, the entire facility is way, way into the ground, completely protected. And there's all the systems of all the different ranges of missiles that could possibly attack Israel that protect Dimona. And no, we didn't have any problem. Nothing was even close to that.
Is there an existential threat, a real threat, that one of these days, perhaps Iran or even Russia with Syria or some other threat out there would decide to capitalize on a little skirmish like this with Hamas and use this opportunity to come in with what really would be some much more powerful weapons?
In theory, yes, but we need to not throw many names and put them in the same basket, because you mentioned Russia. If Russia ever steps in to a conflict with Israel, that's right away declaration of Third World War, because the Russians, they don't kid themselves that they will do that and America will just sit behind and do nothing, even under Biden. That's not going to happen. So they're not idiots to do that. And if they do, they know what the consequences are. It's not going to be local, it's going to be global. As for Iran, yes and no. Like I keep telling all the time, yes, if they will feel that Israel is sensitive, weak, then they'll do that. If they'll understand that Israel is going to do a lot more damage to them than them to us, they will not do it. And I'm sure that you keep following the news and you hear all the time that there was a bug, in their systems over there, in the nuclear, centers that destroy half of the thing or one third of the thing and took them back another year or two or three, and they need to develop that again. Israel will not allow Iran to possess nuclear weapons, period. We try to do our best, and so far very successfully, without the need to go there. But if push comes to shove and we need to, I have no doubt that Israel, militarily speaking, will attack Iran, or better to say, will attack the nuclear centers of Iran and make sure once and for good that this is off the table.
There is in Ezekiel chapter 38 a prophecy of Persia and many parts of the Middle East, the Arab world basically coming up against Israel, and a battle at which the hand of God comes in and very literally takes care of Israel's enemies. From a Jewish perspective, is there any possibility that kind of battle begins today, or from a Jewish perspective, do they take that prophecy for another day?
Both. It is a prophecy that will eventually be fulfilled in a very high magnitude, and that may even lead to the Armageddon that we all know about. And the other thing is that I think it's happening already now, only on smaller scales. And God protection over his people is something that maybe the media doesn't pay a lot of attention to, and maybe on purpose. But think about it: 4,300 rockets were launched into Israel during 11 days. How many people got killed? About 7. There were 5 more that died as a result of that, but not from the bomb. There were 2 ladies that ran to the bomb shelter and fell even before the bomb, went off, and died because of that. Another guy died because of a heart attack. He got scared. But even if you take all of them together, 12 people, can you imagine any populated place in America that 4,300 rockets will be sent to, and in the end of all that, they'll tell you that 12 people died? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The number is so disproportional to the attack, and that's without a doubt God's protection. And you see that almost in every conflict. I want to take you 30 years back to the first Iraq war, when you guys invaded Iraq. The same day, Saddam Hussein started throwing missiles into Israel, to Tel Aviv. And listen to this: 49 missiles, huge missiles, landed in Tel Aviv city, causing damage you would not believe. If you saw the pictures and you were to guess how many people died, you would have said 20,000, 30,000. You would not be surprised by 50,000. You know how many people got killed? 1. Tell me you were lucky. No. It has nothing to do with luck. You can get lucky sometimes, but not on this scale and not this magnitude, and not again and again and again. So, like you said, Randy, prophecies come together, both the hostility and God's protection over his people.
So you're dealing with the United States right now that has a very weak position in the Middle East, rather than a position of strength that the last administration has. What's in store for Israel over the next several years in the Biden administration, presuming that they and there's no indication they would do otherwise, that they keep the weak position that sort of coddles Israel's enemies and turns his back on Israel, and yet tries not to make that politically known. What's up for the future?
So there is a few factors that we need to put into the equation. One is who is finally going to be the prime minister in Israel. This fiasco going on for 2 years now without us having a real government has to end. By the way, there are some who say that the war also started based on that Hamas figured even their government is really dysfunctional, so that would be a good, timing to do that. So as per your question, it will really be important to know who's going to be our prime minister. And then on your end, I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but Biden is actually the best friend of Israel in his own party. So it's both good and not good. The good thing is that he is at least the president, but the bad thing is that if he is the one that is the best friend of Israel in his party, it only tells you what the rest of them think about Israel. So in the next few years, if he will cave in under the pressure of his own house, we are in serious trouble. And so are you, by the way. And if Biden will not be like Trump, I don't expect him to be, but at least will keep his loyalty or whatever to Israel on the same level that he has it now. It's not enough, but better than the others. I guess we'll be able to do okay somehow. Hey, listen, we survived Obama, didn't we?
8 years. Indeed. Okay, we got a few more minutes. If someone has a question, go ahead and put that in the chat box. And while we're waiting there, I do want to say that Boaz and I are working on a series of 5 seminars. So some of you were a part of the other seminars that Boaz had done. And we got a series of 5. This was going to be one of those that you buy a ticket into, and we'll get everything. You're going to get 5 seminars on 5 excellent biblical topics. I'll bring those out here in a few weeks when we get this all ready to go. And I believe it's probably going to be about $89. And with that, you're going to get the Tour Me app. The Tour Me app is this wonderful thing that Boaz has been doing. Without tourists, he's been able to work. Instead of just playing all day, but it's an opportunity for a person just to pick up their phone and say, hey, I'd like to tour Beit Shean, and get Boaz right there giving you a tour of it. And that'll come with it, which is worth the price of admission right there. So you'll watch for that. We'll send out emails and all those things that take place to give you some word for that. But I think it'll be really good. You want to add anything about that, Boaz?
No, just like you said, this app is really going to be incredible. I mean, we're working very hard on it, and we're spending a lot of money on developing it. But in the end, it will be me and another guide who's a friend that will be your guides wherever you want to tour in Israel. So if you want to sit in your living room, one afternoon and say, hey, let's go to Masada, you'll go to the Tour Me app, click Masada, and you'll see me, guiding over there at Masada. You'll get all your memories back. If you haven't been to Israel, then that will introduce Israel to you, really, but in a very good quality. But it's not only tours in Israel. It will, as we develop it, it will include Israeli culture, Israeli cooking. We'll teach you how to make falafel, shawarma, Israeli martial arts that, I will guide. Things that are giving you the complete story of Israel from all different angles, not just the sites themselves. And, the average app, package that we sell is $35 that gives you a year membership, and that comes as part of the $89 that you're paying for to have this 1-year membership with Tour Me Up.
Yeah, really, it's going to be a good deal because you get these intellectually stimulating seminars about things of the scripture, plus a $35 tour to Israel. Can't beat that, can you?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, having been there 25 or 30 times, I don't know, there's still so many places I haven't seen. And I see Boaz on his Facebook page talking about going to this place and that place. I'm thinking, why isn't Boaz taking me there? But it's one of those things that there's just so much in that little tiny piece of ground that it doesn't matter how many times you've been there. There's going to be stuff on here that you haven't seen or that you just want to relive again. And I'm excited about that. I think that's really going to be a
and by the way, I again encourage you to follow me on Facebook. Every day almost I post pictures and videos from Israel. Tomorrow, Lord willing, I'll go to the Western Galilee, to places that normally on our tours we don't really have time to go to that part of Israel, and I'll post some cool videos on things that are there. And try to connect and engage you with Israel at any given time, even when it's hard.
Excellent. Now, let me ask this one last question here, and I know it's getting late for you in Galilee, but we had our question earlier about Dimona, and then, of course, the news reports that we have over here, tend to just focus on one little issue, or they exaggerate, or they don't even tell the truth. So if we wake up one morning and we hear that hundreds of rockets are coming from Gaza or from Hamas in Lebanon, and we think about Boaz over there, and we think, oh my goodness, probably the whole country is shut down, and are they even alive anymore? How do we take the media that we get and know what's true and what's not true, and what is life over for the average Israeli?
It's all very simple. You go to Google and you Google Jerusalem Post newspaper, and whatever the Jerusalem Post tells you is the closest to the truth. Okay, that's the best thing. I mean, you can always call me and I'll tell you the truth, but but if it's something that you really want to know, you say, hey, I'm watching whatever channel and this is what I'm seeing, could this be true or not? Because tell you what, I've been to America 35 times more or less, and so many times I sat in my hotel room and I watched TV and I said, is this what's going on in Israel? Didn't I fly from this place to here only yesterday? And I didn't see any of that. So yeah, they exaggerate big time. And but like I said, if you want a good newspaper from Israel, Jerusalem Post is a legitimate one.
Excellent. Thanks for that good insight. And all this has been free, and I did just put up a little link to a donation if you would like. It goes through Randy White Ministries. It's tax deductible, and 100% of it will go to Boaz Shalgi. If you would like to click that link in the chat box, you are welcome to do so. Or you can go to dispensationalpublishing.com/Boaz and find that, dispensationalpublishing.com/Boaz, or use the link right there in the chat box for those of you who are watching live. Any final questions, or Boaz, would you like to give some final greetings?
Yes, I hope, I pray and I hope that somehow things will quiet down, and that also the pandemic, will be behind us. And I want to get back to normal life. I love America. I love you guys. And to have you come back to Israel, where I can again go out with you and take you places and show you, all the different angles of how God blessed this land, and then come to America and receive this great hospitality that you all show me wherever I go. So this has to be resumed very soon, I pray.
Yeah, excellent. And we look forward to being back in Israel, and I look forward to being back in your home. And congratulations to your daughter Daniela, who recently got engaged.
Yes,
We're excited for the family, and pray that one of these days soon there is a very happy wedding in a peaceful Israel, and that we all get to go and be a part of it, and see some Baptist.
We're thinking of doing it in Cana.
Oh, nice. Nice. There was a very important wedding that took place there. I know someone who had part in that wedding. Maybe we could see if he could show up there also at yours. I appreciate that, and we do very much pray for you and your family. And
By the way,
son,
Randy, I see now Bobby Stark. Bobby, say hi. Do you know Randy? Randy, do you know Bobby?
I don't know Bob.
Well, here are two good friends of mine, so you should know each other.
Excellent,
Hey,
excellent, and
Yeah, just to tell you, Bobby is also a big supporter of Israel. He used to come here a lot every year. And Bobby, tell them a few words about what you do when you come to Israel, about Kiryat Shmona and the bomb shelters. I think you're doing an amazing thing, and they'll love to hear about it, I'm sure.
and
well, simply our ministry is grafted in. You could see it at graftedin.xyz.
yes,
Yeah. And or you can see our Facebook page at Grafted In. We bring groups similar to like Randy. We do the Bible studies, we do teaching, but what we try to do with our groups is we try to do things that benefit Israel. One of the things we do in Kiryat Shmona, which is the town very close to where Boaz lives, he does his grocery shopping there. And whatnot. We've painted and cleaned bomb shelters. We started doing it after the second Lebanon war in 2006 because they were just unrepaired and eyesores on the community. So we've cleaned them up. We've painted them. We also work with a couple other ministries, one in Tiberias, where we just clean up neighborhoods. And we also work with it's not a ministry, but with a gentleman we know in southern Israel near Jerusalem, helping out with the soldiers, giving them their basic needs, whether it's combat gloves or knee pads or things for their guns or medical kits. But what we try to do with our groups when we bring them to Israel is not just do the touring and the teaching. We try to do something for the people. And it's great. You could send money to ministries that do that. But when we bring our groups, you get to do it yourself. And it's been very effective. We've enjoyed doing that with our ministry. We just been, because of pandemic and a couple other things, we're in a holding pattern. Unfortunately, as Boaz knows, we were supposed to go in July, but we've canceled because American Airlines are really screwy right now, and it just really postponed. But if you look at our website or our Facebook page, we'll be doing something with Boaz hopefully soon. I'd like to see us go this year. So that's
thanks, Bobby. And to think that we met on Facebook somehow and turned into a wonderful relationship.
Boaz sent me a goofy message and said, "Hey, this is Boaz Shalgi. I'm a tour guide. Can I call you?" Yeah, that's the message he sent me. I was like, okay, whatever. And we've been friends ever since. 10 years now.
Yeah.
Amen. Excellent.
Okay, thanks, Bobby.
I am going to allow each of you to, let's see, I believe that I've got it now where those of you watching, if you'd like to unmute your mic and say a goodbye, a thank you to Boaz, you are more than welcome to do so at this time. And I think I've got it set where you can do that. There you go. Just excited to have each one of you here for this good time of learning. Thank you, Boaz.
Thank you very much for listening.
For your work. Anyone else want to say goodbye? Go for it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time today with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Boaz.
From Katie.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Boaz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to your new presentations. Thank you.
Yeah, Randy and myself will update you, and hopefully we'll see you there too. It's gonna
Thanks,
be good.
Randy.
Thanks to each one of you all for listening, and it's been a pleasure to have all of you on. Boaz, have a good night's sleep.
Thank you.
Sleep
Go to
well and
bed.
sleep safe.
Thank you so much. Shalom,
Thanks,
shalom.
Randy.
Thank you, Bill. God bless you all.
We give a donation.
Oh, my.